One of the things that a lot of people thought was going to happen with Star Wars when it was purchased by Lucasfilm back in 2012 was that eventually it was going to be a MCU of a galaxy far, far away, that they were going to adopt the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a business approach, the business model, release multiple films per year, and basically become a massive money machine for Disney. And Kathleen Kennedy has recently said that, nah, that's not the case anymore. We've opted out of doing that. And you know what? I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I still think they should lean into it. If I'm being honest with you, I really do feel they should lean into it, but they should focus on what stories they want to tell and have all of those planned out, and definitely keep Brian Johnson 100% away from it. But anyway, in this interview with Vanity Fair, Kathleen Kennedy explains why the MCU approach won't work for Star Wars. And she's right in a couple ways here, and she's wrong in some other ones, at least based upon how the Lucasfilm story group, or the Star Wars story group, at this point completely feels absolutely feckless. I mean, they have absolutely no impact on anything, it feels like, in regards to the movies, and they're focusing more on the comics and the books, which don't have as big of a reach as the movies, and that in and of itself causes a bit of a problem. Anyway, so in this Vanity Fair article that talks about the whole situation with Rise of Skywalker, Kennedy does talk about the massive rollout strategy for movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how it will not work when it comes to the world of Star Wars. Both franchises are owned by Disney, which has certain demands that even Star Wars might have trouble meeting. It's not that Star Wars has trouble meeting it. Fans are not against seeing Star Wars movies. Fans actually want more Star Wars. What they want is they want good Star Wars. There is a vast difference there, right? They want something that's going to be interesting and intriguing and good. And if it can set up a narrative and set up a storyline and set up a lot of things that are going to eventually come down through a trilogy or through an anthology, then they're going to be more inclined to stick around and see it through and build that loyalty. The thing between Marvel and Star Wars, and the reason why it's not necessarily fair to compare the two of them, is that, well, for one, Marvel's been around for decades longer than Star Wars. They have hundreds, if not thousands, of interconnected characters, interconnected storylines, and there is a plethora of old Star Wars or of old Marvel stories that they can pull from to adapt into these feature films, which, oh yeah, they've been doing that. And then Disney, well, actually Star Wars has the exact same thing in regards to the EU that they could do that from. They could easily go back and pull from those stories, and they could easily go back and adapt those things, and they could easily find themselves in the same situation as Marvel. But oh right, they decided to kill that off and create this Star Wars story group as a way to expand their own mythos, which from a business perspective I completely and fully understand. But we can see now where it's biting them in the ass, and they have to kind of go back to the EU, which they do outright own, and then pull and pick and choose from that, rather than just, you know, adapting some of those stories that people actually want to see. Why not give us a Luke trilogy post the Return of the Jedi? Sebastian Stan is age appropriate. The two look pretty much identical, and he could pull off playing Luke's stoic persona. He could do it. We would want to see it. And you know what? People would definitely flock to the theaters to go and check it out once you redeem Luke Skywalker's character in The Rise of Skywalker, coming out this December. Anyway, she goes on to say here that I think it's a larger expectation that Disney has. On one hand, or on the other hand, though, I think that Disney's very respectful of what this is. And right from the beginning, we talked about the fragility of this form of storytelling, because it's something that means so much to fans that you can't turn this into some kind of factory approach. You can't even do what Marvel does necessarily, where you pick characters and build new franchises around those characters. This needs to evolve differently, and that is 100% true. It does need to evolve differently. That doesn't mean that it can't evolve itself. That doesn't mean that you can't find a way to make it work. The biggest problem here is when she says the word factory approach. Now, she does go on to clarify that. She does say here that one of the things with Marvel is that she's not demeaning Marvel. She says, however, it's neither a method that will work for the galaxy far, far away. They can't just turn out these movies on a conveyor belt because, as she says, this form of storytelling is fragile. While the MCU can take different characters and do movies with very different approaches, like Captain America or Thor Ragnarok, are almost nothing alike. For instance, the method will not work here. And here's the thing, that's true. It is true ultimately that when it comes to talking about these issues and talking about these characters, that there has to be a continuity between the films. That doesn't matter. that doesn't matter at all. The continuity can be there, fine. The continuity can absolutely be there, and people will live. They'll deal with it. They'll completely deal with it. The biggest problem stems from the fact that it feels like they don't actually believe in the properties that they have. Like they don't actually believe in everything. What they believe in is just churning out movies and hoping that they stick, instead of taking the time, going back to the EU, finding the story they want to tell. Maybe they want to adapt something in between Rebels or Return of the Jedi and A New Hope, that 19-year gap, and tell an arc that takes a span of 10 years that bridges it from one point to the other. I mean, but they're kind of doing that with Star Wars Resistance, which if you haven't seen that show, I do recommend it. It's a bit childish, absolutely. It is aimed at kids, but by the end of the first season, hot damn, it's right there with The Force Awakens. Like it's right there on it. And it's actually pretty freaking good. The same thing with Rebels. You know, Rebels started off and it was between episode 3 and episode 4, and it got a big fan base. So Disney can make this stuff work. They have to be willing to play the long game here. And the problem, though, is that they just got cold feet based upon the internet's response to The Last Jedi. You want to get rid of that response? Make sure Rian Johnson never touches another property again that he writes. You want to let him direct, fine, but he's got no say over the script. And let Kathleen Kennedy, or well, not so much let Kathleen Kennedy, but get Kathleen Kennedy, heavily infer the Kathleen Kennedy that she needs to bring in someone to oversee the Star Wars brand. And everyone wants that to be Dave Filoni, but Filoni is a creative who wants to actively work. So that's going to be a problem. You can't have it be Filoni as much as we wanted to, because he would be involved in everything from start to finish, and that could ultimately burn somebody out. But at the same time, there's no one better to be the new Kevin Feige of Marvel, or of Lucasfilm, than Filoni, and that is 100% true. But I believe he'd be better served as in a creative role versus an overarching or overall producer role. And that's where I think we find ourselves with Star Wars right now. It very much could emulate the Marvel method, but it would have to do it in a way that is very well thought out, planned in advance, and meticulously crafted and created, which is not that hard to do. It almost feels like with her response to that is that they just kind of expect to show up on set, hit record, and then gross $1 billion despite whatever comes out. Even though that's ultimately not true, and a lot of hours and a lot of work goes in to these projects, the people who are architecting the projects, the people who have been guiding it, clearly don't know what they're doing. And I put all of that on the Star Wars story group, because they keep trying to be treated like they have some kind of importance, but they ultimately just fail at every level to really pump out anything that is going to reach the mass populace and push everything forward. It kind of feels like they just don't know what the hell it is they're doing. And maybe I'm wrong. And maybe Pablo Hidalgo and Curie Hart, when she was still there, they know exactly what they're doing, and I'm just not seeing it. And I pay attention to this stuff for a living. So if I'm not seeing it, that pretty much means that neither is anybody else. And that is a very big problem. But I leave it to you, your thoughts, your opinions. Could Star Wars adopt the Marvel Cinematic Universe approach if they did it carefully and be as successful? I do want to know your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments. Talk to you guys later. Have a great day. Peace out. Hey, thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. But if you really want to help the channel, be sure to check out patreon.com/Matt Jarbo. There's $3 theater perks. Lots going to be going on with that, as well as the Facebook group, which is going to be only growing as time goes on. Anyway, thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.